Let's give a round of applause. We are honored to welcome Mr. Cassidy.
Thanks very much. What a treat it is to be here amongst veterans in this room, and I'm certainly excited to tell you about the Medal of Honor Museum and where we are. But given that we're in this cohort of people, I thought it'd be appropriate to kick off a few military stories. And you know, it is 100% because of the opportunities that the United States Navy, or the military in general, but in my case the Navy, afforded me that I'm even here talking to you today about this subject. You know, because the Navy let me attend the Naval Academy. I didn't know about the SEAL teams before going there. You know, this is in the 80s. Now you can't turn around in Barnes and Noble without knocking over 4 or 5 SEAL team books. But in the 80s, there was none of that when I was graduating high school, and so I never heard about the Navy SEALs until I showed up in Annapolis and I saw my first SEAL pin on somebody's chest. And I thought, oh my goodness, what is that? And who is that person? And what do they? Learned a little bit about it and pursued the prerequisites to make that selection for service. That's how I ended up in the SEAL teams. And it wasn't until I was probably 26 or 27 years old where I met Bill Shepard, who was the first SEAL who would become an astronaut. Mayor Williams said there was 3. I was the second, and then Johnny Kim, who we recently selected, is the third. But I met Bill Shepard at some social event, and that's when it dawned on me that, hey, anybody can apply. Applying to be an astronaut is like applying to college. You fill out the forms, you send it in, you hope for the best, you get an interview, and you see what happens. And that was the case for me. I applied one time in we select classes about every 4 years, and I applied for the class of 2000 astronaut corps and did not get selected, didn't even get an interview. But that was before combat tours, and I didn't have a graduate degree. So 4 years later, 2004, I was a much more well-rounded applicant, and that's when I got selected. And you know, remember in high school when you get admissions from colleges and it's a thin envelope, it's like, oh, it's not gonna be good. Big thick envelope with lots of forms to fill out is pretty good envelope. Well, that version for NASA is if the human resources director calls you, you're not gonna be an astronaut. If the chief astronaut's voice is on the other end of the line, then it's a pretty good phone call. And that happened for me in the summer of 2004. The phone rang and he said, hey, this is Kent Romger from NASA. He was the chief astronaut at the time. And I started jumping up and down in my kitchen. My kids are looking at me like, who the heck is Dad today? But that phone call changed our lives, and we moved down to Houston, and I was there for 17 or so years, 17 and a half. And 3 space flights, culminating well, I say last year, 2020, time gets away from me. But I joke around and say, 4 years ago, I knew I was going to be in quarantine in March of 2020. I just didn't know all of y'all were going to join me there, because we do, in fact, go into isolation prior to launching, so we don't bring up germs and sicknesses to the space station. But one story in particular I want to share with you because it's related to my time in Afghanistan, applicable to my whole life, and I think you guys will appreciate it, and it's something that's stuck with me that ever since it happened 20 years ago. Our SEAL platoon deployed to Afghanistan. We're there shortly after September 11th, maybe October, November type time frame. And you remember hearing about this place called Tora Bora? Mm-hmm. It's on the Afghan-Pakistan border, and we knew that bin Laden was there, the big we, the US, based on radio traffic and a bunch of other things. And our platoon was given a mission to go to that area, and there was a cave complex called the Zharwar Kili Cave complex. I think it mentioned it in this brochure thing. And we were supposed to go there for about a day or so and kind of see if we can find evidence of bin Laden and find out what's in the caves, because the caves were known to have everything that could harbor the enemy: food, munitions, safe haven, and all that. So as you guys are aware, when you get a mission tasking, you've got some period of time, maybe 48 hours, 36 hours or something, to get your plan together, collect your intelligence, coordinate with other units, helicopters, ground forces, whatever, and then brief somebody who is in charge that gives you permission to go do the mission. So that happened, And our platoon of about 20 folks were inside this, you guys can picture the tent, you know, like a smelly, damp, green, old army tent with one stringy light bulb hanging from the middle of it. On the back walls, maps and easel board flip charts, and then we had a little sand table with G.I. Joe guys in it to rehearse the maneuvers and things of the upcoming mission. So myself and the platoon chief were kind of anchored in the tent as guys are coming and going, and all this coordination is happening over the course of the 36 hours leading up to the briefing. I don't really remember ever leaving the tent. We clearly did at some point, but it was just a lot of intense planning. Leading up to this time, we're giving the briefing to this guy named Captain Harwood, who was my boss. He was a SEAL, went on to be a vice admiral later, and he's had some civilian leadership roles in our government since then. But at the time, he was Navy captain and G.I. Joe scar on his face, and like really mean and known for just chewing up and spitting back out young lieutenants and chiefs that are trying to tell him what's up. And so it comes time for the briefing. I felt like, because I knew his personality, we really did our homework and had what I thought was a solid plan. We deliver the briefing. He asked a couple questions, which were pretty easy, I thought. And then he's like, okay, Cassidy, go do the mission. Like, yes, okay, score. So everybody's leaving the tent. I'm kind of the last one there, roll up the maps in my arm, look around, everything's secure. And then I look at my watch, it's like 34 minutes till I have to be on the helicopter. I need to get my gear, I need some chow, I need some water, and I need to go to the bathroom. Some order of those things need to happen in the next 34 minutes. And at the time in Kandahar, there was no white lights allowed outside. It was just little red lens or no lights at all, so you know, the enemy didn't know where our people were. And so I decided to go to the bathroom first. The bathroom at the time was a trench. You guys have probably seen similar things. Trench dug in the ground, 2 4x4 wooden posts, you know, you build decks out of these things, suspended across the hole, and then 3 tires next to each other, and then sheets of plywood on 3 sides with the opening looking at the runway, so as you're doing your business, you're watching planes. You're very thoughtful, right? So that was the situation. And I've got my maps, I'm on my mission. I turn the corner around the plywood, my little red lens flashlight, which illuminates a pair of boots. I'm like, oh, darn. And then a pair of naked shins. And then I get up to the face, and it's Captain Harwood's face, sitting on the middle tire. Oh, here's me like, in my head, sir, what are you doing? Who sits on the middle tire? But there he is, middle tire and all. And I got like 33 minutes till I gotta do that, eat, get water, get my gear. Sir, can I join you? Yeah, Cassidy, have a seat, have a seat. So there I go. I drop trowel. Our knees are awkwardly touching. There's a little bitty thing of toilet paper between us, where he's kind of trying to hog it. And you know, like, oh, this is just all bad. Neither one of us are probably very effective at what we're sitting there to do. And then all of a sudden, he stops and turns and looks at me and goes, hey, you know what I expect of you? I expect you to make good decisions and bring them in home safely. And it was like a seminal moment in my life. As funny as it sounds, true story, exactly the situation, very vulnerable time, sitting there like that. And he delivers a life lesson for me that has stuck with me, because I realized the very reason I was getting a paycheck, or any of us got a paycheck from the United States government that day and any day, was to be a leader and to make decisions. And it applies when we're wearing a uniform, it applies right now in our civilian lives. You know, we're in positions because the organization trusts us to do that. So I share with you that story because it was funny, but also it's true, and it's been a lesson that's stuck with me my whole life. So thanks to Captain Harwood for sharing that lesson with me. Anyways, lots of stuff to tell you about spacewalks, but that's a whole nother story, and maybe another time when we have a cup of coffee or something, we can do that. But here today, I'll tell you about the museum and what we're bringing to Arlington, as the mayor said. And we're, I think I'm in charge here. We'll start with this quick video.
Those who earned it went above and beyond the call of duty. With gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of life, their hearts were full of courage and devotion to a cause, in country and in flag. They heard their brothers' calls and answered them. They faced their innermost pain and did not tremble. Longing for their families, they did not fall. And even though they were blinded, they left no man behind. Fearless and tireless, they were willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. They were our sons, sisters, fathers, friends. They never asked to be heroes, but heroes they were. And they taught us how to be strong, righteous, and brave. We don't know them all, but we owe them all. And though many did not return, they made home the land of the free, to lead lives of integrity, and to preserve liberty and justice for all. Through their actions, they've shown us the true meaning of citizenship, and above all else, patriotism. Their stories shall not be forgotten. Their stories shall be celebrated, witnessed, remembered, and told. They stood for our country. Join us in standing for them.
Boy, I could watch that video 100 times. That never gets old seeing that one. But you guys all know about the Medal of Honor in this group of cohorts of veterans and allies. It's our nation's highest award for valor. It's been around since 1861. President Lincoln signed it into existence. Since then, there's been 3,511. This is actually interesting. The number is 11, but why does it say 30? Because 19 people got it twice. Isn't that amazing? That was hard for me to understand. But there's been 40 million of us who have worn the uniform since then, so it kind of gives you how elite the medal itself is. We've got three parts of our project. This is what you'll see here in our town. The museum itself, which we just had the groundbreaking, as was mentioned, wonderful event. Those guys work quick. The tent is already gone. There's bulldozers moving earth around right now, and it'll be about 2.5 years. So football season of 2024 is when the doors will open, and that has started like right now. So that's happening. The other part is a monument in DC. That's a bit of a process. You don't just put a monument on the mall in DC. You've got multiple steps. The first of which is getting you authorization to do so. And last year in the summer, it passed through the House 416 to nothing, approved, and then went to the Senate later in the fall, 100 to 0. Complete unanimous support throughout our Congress, which is really, really unprecedented in these times, as you guys all know. And then the president signed it into law just after Christmas, right around Christmas. So that gave us authority to proceed, and now we're working with the Park Services to identify the exact plot of land. As I understand it, there are 3 plots under consideration. Basically, all of them, if you're Abraham Lincoln sitting in his monument, off to his left, sort of by the Vietnam Memorial, is all 3 locations are generally right there. Once we know the exact plot, that what the dimensions are and such, then we'll be able to engage with monument designers and a construction team and move forward on that. We've got 7 years to do it from the time when Biden signed it into law, so the clock is ticking on us. We've used a couple months out of those 7, but it's a little longer. In my sort of vision, we'll finish construction here on the building in Arlington, and then begin construction right around that same time on the monument, sort of keeping that flow of things. That's a plan anyways. A plan is a place to deviate from, right? And then the third leg of our stool is the Institute, which will be housed here in the museum. And we are actually, up until about a month ago, this slide was about as deep as I could present to you on the Institute. Right now, we've hired a director of leadership programs, Air Force retired gentleman, PhD in leadership, and he's doing research leadership seminars and works in that space right now. He's coming on board this month, and we're putting together what we think will be our first program in like November. What does the Institute look like? It'll have a youth component, K through 12, maybe university internships, that sort of thing, and then an adult component with corporate type leadership training that you might go with your company or that sort of thing, where you can pay for different levels of like day, week, whatever. We're still putting the word what that looks like right now, and actually maybe we'll bounce ideas, come back to this group perhaps later in the year and bounce ideas off of you guys and see if this is what we're thinking. Do you think we should tweak any of the knobs, that sort of thing? So more to follow on that. But really excited about the Institute. As Mayor Williams was talking about those values are what this Institute will be, the vehicle which get those values out to our nation. And we're really, really excited about that. Of the 66 living Medal of Honor recipients, there only about 20 of them travel and actively do stuff. The clock is ticking, they're not getting younger. Our motivation is to have the building built so all of 66 of them can enjoy it. Woody Williams, who's the oldest, we had him here on last weekend, Thursday and Friday. He fell down the stairs a couple months ago, and he's up and at 'em, and he was walking around, but he did require a little bit of assistance. But it's exciting to think that we can have this thing built for him to enter. He did 200 speaking events last year. Can you believe that? Even in the middle of COVID. So he's a ball of fire and really motivating to meet him. Anyways, because of those guys, the Institute will be their vehicle to get their values out to them. You can imagine, it's only up to our imagination what type of events we can have here: symposiums, seminars, programs, all this sort of thing. We've got a 200-person theater there. We're blessed with great bipartisan support. All 4 presidents are supportive of us. Charlotte is our chairman, and my boss. President Carter doesn't get out too much anymore. He's getting a little older, but the 3 that Clinton, Bush, and Obama all participated in a video presidential service announcement that I'll show you here at the end of the presentation. Really excited to have that. There's the values that the mayor was talking about and that we're excited to share with everybody. Fundraising. This slide is actually old. We're at 166 million raised so far. We need 217 to complete the building here in Arlington. That includes the physical building itself, the design and construction of the museum exhibits, and then paying our staff and our overhead and our salaries from now until when the doors open in 2024. So that's the full operational cost to get us up and running. And then another milestone for us was we secured a bridge loan, construction loan, for the difference between where we are now and what we fully need. And that loan closed a couple weeks ago. And that was the last piece of the puzzle for Trey Yelverton and the mayor to give us authority to begin construction. So a key milestone for us as an organization was the construction, for many reasons, right? Like it represented that we had our act together enough for the city to believe in us, and then have a celebration with everyone. The museum exhibits, I'll kind of go through quickly here, but it's a museum of biographies, of stories of people. It's not going to be a war museum. It's not going to be laid out by conflict. It's really, we're trying to inspire people by people connecting with other people who happen to have been the Medal of Honor and a Medal of Honor recipient, and tell their whole story before the action. Of course, the action is a critical piece of it, but then so many interesting stories of recipients after the medal and after their military service. So that's what you'll see in the museum. Emphasis on character, patriotism. You know, when we laid out the museum, we're laid it out in a way that's by thematically laid out. So coming to the rescue is an effort. The ultimate sacrifice, the battle after the battle, you know, dealing with demons when you come back. Naval and air, ground combat. So that, and then in doing it this way, each gallery then can be have representatives from each service, each conflict, have diversity from any way you kind of want to look at it. And that, we really like this layout. And right now we're about 50%, 25 to 50% of the design, the development of the design of these galleries. So we're moving along pretty well. And when I first took the job, like, we've got a long time before we have to solve what the galleries look like. We gotta get the damn building built first. But it's all kind of happening in parallel. It takes a while to write all the stories, pick which stories you're going to tell. We can honor about 50-ish, plus or minus a handful either direction, on a permanent way, you know, stories, which is hard, right? You have 3,511, how do you pick 50? And so you spread that around, as I mentioned, conflict and service and the other metrics. But we also realize it can't be just a stagnant museum. It can't be the same one. So if you are a local person here and you go to the museum, it's boring to go back again because it's the same. So we're making sure that we can change out some of those stories. Some of the stories, if it's a giant helicopter in there and it's a helicopter recipient, it's difficult to change out a giant helicopter, but you know what I mean. So some of those 50 will be rotational. We will have a gallery that's a whole gallery based on that can be rotated out, so we can change it depending on that year or that month or whatever we want to highlight. This picture I sort of glossed over because it's somewhat difficult to understand if you're not familiar with the layout, but this is looking from the sky down. It's a square box. You come up from downstairs from the rotunda, and then this will be a Medal of Honor experience of immersive sort of digital type experience in the center, and then you'll walk the perimeter and go through each of those galleries that I mentioned as you complete your journey. Just a few pictures. We have a couple big artifacts. One is a helicopter, another one is an airplane. That's the ultimate sacrifice, people that gave their lives knowingly to save their teammates. Medal of Honor and culture, of course. This is really super cool, the interactive nature where you can, you know, the recipient is kind of like a virtual Siri or Hey Google, and you ask them questions and they'll tell you, and you can kind of have a virtual conversation with the recipient. This takes tremendous amount of hours of filming, so that project is expensive and we can't do that with all recipients, but we'll start out with a couple, and I think this display will be one of the popular ones. Of course, you're going to get the 10-year-old kid questions, but you know, we'll have to have a filter for those. Like, how do you go to the bathroom in space?
What's your favorite?
We will have collections, some items on display, but they'll all be tied some way to the story of that person. So the story of that person will be unique, and then some artifact or two or whatever that represents that you can walk away from. Oh, that's the person that founded the AFL for, you know, American Football League, for example, which is a football. And do I hit play here?
The President of the United States meets so many extraordinary individuals.
Among the most impressive are those who are in the Medal of Honor, the highest accolade our country bestows upon a member of the armed services.
The Medal of Honor is awarded for bravery in combat to those who go above and beyond the call of duty.
Risking their lives to save others, overcoming incredible odds, often making the ultimate sacrifice.
The estimated 40 million people who have served in the United States military since the Civil War, fewer than 4,000 have received the honor.
We salute these extraordinary Americans. We will never forget their sacrifices. We will always be inspired by their heroism.
Let's all come together to build a museum in their honor.
The National Medal of Honor Museum.
On a mission to inspire America.
Join the mission at mohmuseum.org.
So that's all the formal presentation I had about the museum. I would love to answer any questions about that, or NASA, or the SEAL teams, or anything if you wanted to fire away. I don't know what kind of timeline we're on.
I'm sure we have time. I would ask you to say your name and who you're with, so that Chris gets a chance to, if you do have a question, so.
Linda Decker, how do you go to the bathroom in space?
How do you I get asked so many times that I made, while I was up there last time, I made a video, so you can Google Chris Cassidy. Chris Cassidy bathroom in space, and it's pretty well done, I think, and you get a sense for it. But yeah, I'm serious. Yeah, all of the bodily functions, bathroom, sleeping, eating, hunger, fatigue, hair growing, fingernails growing, all that stuff is completely the same. Like, when you're hungry, you're just hungry. When you wake up, you gotta pee, and you gotta eat, and all that doesn't change. It's the same. And so when you do, relative to going to the bathroom, we pee into a tube, and it gets collected. This is an interesting fact. We recycle about 95% of our water. So sweaty t-shirts, they dry in the air, and that moisture gets captured into the air conditioning system, and the condensate gets purified back into drinking water. And same with urine. Like, you drink your water, and you don't really think about that you're drinking yesterday's coffee, but you are. You're drinking yesterday's coffee, but it's pure water. It tastes great, less filling. But we have to change out the filters and things, because there's a bunch of nasty stuff that gets removed from it. But that technology, all joking aside, is essential to us as a country, or as a humanity, getting to Mars, because it's so costly in fuel to carry the weight of water to space, and you need a lot of water. I think the general rule of thumb is like two liters per person per day, which is kind of like bare bones, and that's rehydrating your food, that's drinking water, that's brushing your teeth, that's all the stuff that requires water. So the recycling part is absolutely critical to us getting out of our Earth orbit.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Prudence Mathis with the David Nicholas Organ Donor Awareness Foundation. And between your NASA experience and your SEAL experience, which one is your favorite?
Well, it's a good question. At different phases of life, like I had no problem. Well, SEAL training was hard, but I made it through. I don't think physically my body would be able to do it now. And so at the time I transitioned from the SEALs to NASA, I was 34, and that was a good time. Like at a certain point, it's harder to keep up with the 22-year-olds that are running around. So it's hard to say what was my favorite. I have distinct, really fond memories from both. This is another thing that not to pontificate too crazy, but I realized that if you have a cool event that happens and you just experience it yourself, that's a neat memory. But when you have that same thing and you share it with people that you love and that love you and your teammates, then that becomes an amazing experience. And it's the experiences that I cherish, not the careers. Yeah.
Thank you.
Chris, I am Dan Pope with Roy Good Photography. It just occurred to me the other day, because of the nature of SEAL missions, that they're very classified. Are there any SEALs who have become Medal of Honor winners, or does that tend to hold them back because you can't tell their stories necessarily because they're all classified?
We do. We have 7 Navy SEAL Medal of Honor recipients, 5 of whom are alive, and to my knowledge hasn't held back. Maybe they redact some of the write-up or something like this. But
okay, that's interesting.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your talk. It was absolutely wonderful. Clay Allen and I tried it. We hope to actually participate in building the National Medal of Honor Museum. My question was about the families and those items that you had up on the screen, donating to the museum versus holding on to them. Have you talked to these families and gotten their insight on how they do that? How they give?
That's a great question, because it's their family's most cherished memories, right? Memorabilia. So it shows a great deal of trust in an organization if they're going to give it to somebody to care for. And we started out slow, and we've been picking up some momentum in terms of collections, and specifically with Medal of Honor families. It's one thing if the recipient's still alive and you can talk directly to the person and say, would you like in the future for us to hold you? And the recipient can be part of that discussion. It's totally different when the medal's been in the family for decades, and it's, maybe it's in a closet, maybe it's on a wall in a dusty frame or something, but somebody's the caretaker of it, grandson, granddaughter, whatever the case may be. And in fact, the groundbreaking ceremony that we had last weekend, we've already had, I think it was 3 families that have come forward and say we would like to contribute more. We see that this is not just an idea, this is going to happen, and we'd like to be part of it. So as we become more and more real, we're getting more traction with some of the families, and there's just a level of trust. Our curator is out actually traveling all the time to talk to families and figure out what would be meaningful to them and that sort of thing. Some of these really cool things, besides the medal itself, are letters from the World War II war zone. Like Senator Inouye, his family just gave us his medal and his Presidential Medal of Freedom, and the original telegrams that his wife and his parents received when they thought he was dead, and then a second one that said he's alive, and another telegram that said he's coming home or something like this. So those are some of the really, really cool things that we're able to be in care of. Yes, sir.
My name is Chaplain. I'll share with you about Afghanistan. I was there 330 days, boots on the ground.
Thank you.
We're up. And I was with Mossad at one time. So, are you going to have Chaplain Capadano?
We sure are, absolutely.
Did you tell him who he was?
Chaplain Capadano was in Vietnam, and very much endeared himself to the Marines there. In fact, Fred Smith, who is in charge of FedEx, he was very, very moved by Chaplain Capadano and has contributed in his name to many things, and this will be one of those as well. I think there's 9 Chaplain Medal of Honor recipients, if I got the numbers correctly. And so we'll weave their story in throughout the museum.
The Navy Chaplain School is in the chapel, it's the Capadano Chapel. And they donated his medal, and all that. And so, just to tell you, Chaplain Capadano was in a chopper, and he had just left LZ, and he told the aviator to turn around. And he said, "Sir, we shouldn't go because you're in the Holy Hilo." And he said, "No." And he said, "Turn around." And he did. And he pulled 4 Marines to safety. And the 5th one, as he was pulling the 5th one, he was shot in the chest. And he died in the Marine's arms, and we just said. And he also performed the ceremony for 2 people. One name was Jack, and another name was Jack Kennedy. He was a Catholic priest.
very, very inspirational story that will be shared in the museum. Sir?
Just a quick question about you, Chris. How did you make the transition from being in the military and an astronaut to this position as the president and CEO of the National Medal of Honor?
Right, yeah, there's certain points, well, you guys all know the military boots you out at 30, and I was approaching that and knew that the runway was, the end of the runway was in front of me last summer, and so I knew I was retiring from the government, interestingly enough, when you get selected as an astronaut, you can become if you're a civilian, you become a government civil servant, and that's how you get paid. If you're already in the military like I was, my duty station was the Johnson Space Center for all those years, but I remained active duty Navy. My paycheck was coming from the Navy. I had to do fitness reports and annual PT tests and all that. Even though I was assigned to the Johnson Space Center, that was my PCS orders, my duty station. So I knew I was retiring from the Navy and moving on from NASA. And it was in this moment of kind of figuring out what do I want to do next, that the opportunity just sort of fell out of the sky. A friend of the mayor's and I is a board member, and he and I were in SEAL training together way back when I was brand new Navy person. And he asked me would I be interested in coming to help on this project, and I sure was, and that's how it all happened.
Have you found a house in Arlington yet?
No, well, we just put a contract on Maine, 7 townhomes. There's new ones that are being kind of near here, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm losing, I don't know where I'm pointing, but yeah. It's ready in June. Yeah.
Congratulations on that. And one last comment and a question. If we make a donation today to the Medal of Honor Museum, can we get a ticket to opening day?
Yes. Hell yeah. We'll put it in writing.
I didn't get to come to the ground.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sir.
Yes, sir. Michael Davey, former Army Green Beret. I can appreciate you.
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously you have a distinguished career. I'd love to hear what would be, as this is a Veterans Business Council, right? So I would love to hear your, I think, your favorite leadership lesson when it comes, and it kind of piggybacking on the last question, that transition from the military, that takeaway that you would impart on this business council.
Mm-hmm. You know, the transition was something that I thought to myself, I'm ready to retire. I know I'm retiring. It's not going to be a big deal. And I had plenty of people tell me, that there's going to be a little hole in your heart that will have to get filled up. I'm like, I'm a big tough Navy SEAL. That's not going to affect me. But sure enough, it did. I had a government paycheck since I was 18, and the tribe, the camaraderie, the unit cohesion that we all love in that world was something that was just a fabric in me. So the transition to civilian life was a bit of an adjustment, but then I realized that it's all, and you guys probably already know this, but it's all about people. Whether you're doing a mission with a uniform on, it's human beings with a heartbeat doing it. Whether you're building a museum in Arlington, Texas, or whether you're doing IT logic in Arlington, Texas, it's people that are doing it. And so my biggest takeaway leadership-wise was, it's just all about humans and people coming together to form to be focused on that mission, whatever it is. You can insert X, Y, or Z in that spot. So I don't think I'm answering your question directly, but it was enlightening to me to realize that this civilian role is not really any different.
No, I mean, you did, you think coming from a team environment, right? Mm-hmm. Very much team oriented. And so again, trying to bring that team mentality into business. And again, we're not out on our own island, but we're more effective as a team.
And by the way, we just hired a 10th group guy to run our operations.
Yeah.
Retired master sergeant.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You know, I think this is a good time to interject about the Leadership Institute on that very, you know, in the military, and especially as Medal of Honor recipients, you'll hear from them, it was all about their fellow soldiers, their teamwork that was there. And right now, the number one question in corporate America is how to fight the me culture and keep them working into teams. But when you hear a guy like Chris Cassidy talk about the importance of team, or General Brady and the importance of teamwork, you know, it gets through all the way from second graders to, you know, whatever age it is, and then it'll be a great opportunity for us to be able to share their inspiring stories to get across great points for all of us to be successful in our lives today.
Yes, sir.
I want to be respectful of your time, so you tell me when
Chris,
we're
you
done.
gotta
but-
tell about the Russian astronauts,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
in today's world.
We'll take one question and I'll mention it.
Hi, my name is Maria with Don Staffing. As a mother, I would like to know, how would you encourage the new generation, the kids, the young people, to do what you did, or what all the veterans and people who joined in the forces, like how would you encourage to tell them to do the same that you did in life?
I have no magic answer, but I think as a person, as a human, that we are all inspired differently, but it's inspiration, and somehow when that spark lights on, for me, as a kid, I liked the Boston Celtics, and
All right.
yeah, and you know, I could still tell you the starting five lineup, but it was that, you know, I connected to that, and it drove me to shoot countless free throws. You know, I never made it to the NBA, but that drove me, a passion in me, and I think that in telling these stories, and we'll have different ways people can be inspired, and whether you show me all the recipients from Lubbock, show me all the recipients that are Air Force, show me the one female recipient, and in having ways to inspire differently for every person, and hopefully that will impact more than we, you know what I mean? Not articulating that super well, but I don't think, in long and short of it, I don't think there's one answer that motivates all kids. It has to be something that lights a fire under that particular kid. We're all, you know, if you're parents, you know exactly what the heck I'm talking about. You have the same kids in the same house, and they're all wired differently. But the mayor was telling me, reminded me too, that with all the mess going on in Ukraine and with Russia, we've got Russian cosmonauts living on board the International Space Station right now with U.S. astronauts, I flew up, I launched from Kazakhstan with 2 cosmonaut crewmates. The guy on my headset talking was speaking in Russian, the displays are all in Russian, and then when you come down at the end of the mission, and you land in Kazakhstan, it's 100% a Russian military operation to recover the troops. The capsule lands in the middle of the desert. An oil-dripping Russian nasty helicopter comes and picks you up and flies you back to the nearest runway. That then you get flown to a nearby NASA airplane, and then flies you back. And all of the troops that are on the ground are Russian military. The fixed-wing aircraft supporting the overall process of Russian military. So tonight, actually, in several hours, Mark Vandehei, who is American that launched up on a Soyuz, is climbing into that capsule. They're going to hit the get out of here button, and then 5 hours later, he'll land in Kazakhstan. And I've been talking to my former colleagues, like, how's it all going? What are you guys doing? They're just kind of pretending like it's not there, the big elephant. And on board the station, my other friend, Tom Marshburn, who's up there, he was telling me, yeah, we're just avoiding this topic. We're eating dinner like normal. But I think it'll be really, really weird for Mark to land, but they're all our friends, and we, you know, when you work amongst the same people for decades, you know them. I've drunk lots of vodka, you know, fifth of vodka with many Russian cosmonauts, and so I think that friendship will carry the day tonight for Mark's return. But I don't think we'll see subsequent American launches on the Russian vehicles, really. Especially now that we have SpaceX, so we can just solve that problem in our own country. Anyways, thank you very much.